in the present, and to anyone who's going to see this in the future. My name is Dave Hurl, and then this is Sal Crispo, and today we are going to be talking about the chakra system. We're going to be doing a deep dive into the human energy system and the thoughts and the behaviors and the beliefs and what affects the flow of energy and what balances and unbalances the chakras, and things we can do to sort of help rebalance the chakras in our life, just for better health and better harmony. Sal and I both look at the complete picture whenever we're looking at an individual. We look at physical, so we look at the nutrition, we look at the exercise, we look at the sleep, we look at the mental, emotional, and mastery of the mind and the emotions, but we also take a look at the spiritual. So we look at the whole picture of an individual when we're working with our clients. And so today we're going to stick a little bit more on the spiritual side of things, but it's all connected, right? It's all related. So welcome, Sal. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for the intro, Dave. We've done some talks in the past and they've gone great. So I always look forward to doing these with you. And I'm excited to bring this one, which is more, again, holistic as always, but more, I guess, on the energetic or ethereal side of things. And I think, you especially shine when it comes to this subject. So I look forward to, this presentation.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. So I guess we will just jump right into it.
Okay.
So,
yeah, let me just get this open. Yep. Here we go. All right. So today, I guess the main thing that we're going to look at, is the chakra system, as Dave mentioned, and with the focus being the balancing of the chakras, and we're going to be looking at the 7 main chakras. For the people who have joined us, welcome again, and if you have any questions, feel free to type it in at any time, and we will answer as soon as possible. And we're also going to be available for questions at the end. And you know what, there are no stupid questions. I always like to say that if whatever it is, like Dave and I are very easygoing, non-judgmental, and we've answered many questions in the past, and we are rarely surprised. So please feel free to ask anything. What are chakras and why are they important? Okay, you can take a hold of this one, Dave.
Okay, so when we're talking about the chakras, it's a part of the human energy system, of which there are different parts, right? There's also the aura, and there's the meridians. There's a number of energy channels that run around the body, but the energy chakras, they make up sort of the core of your energetic system. So each of the chakras, hey, Rosa, nice to see you. Glad you could join us.
Hey, Rosa.
All right. Right. So, so when you're talking about chakras, think about sort of a vortex. And so when you look at someone, if you could see them energetically, you would see sort of like a spinning wheel. And that wheel vortex would extend outwards from them in the front and the back. And the center of this would be sort of down at the central channel in the midline of your body. So they emanate from deep within you at the center of you, and they extend outwards. And basically, my understanding is that they sort of regulate the flow of energy in and out of the body according to the needs of the energy system. And so if a chakra is spinning clockwise, it might be drawing in energy from the external environment because there might be a deficiency or low energy within a chakra. But it's spinning counterclockwise, it actually might be pushing out energy because there might be too much there that's not getting utilized or dispersed throughout the body properly. So they help regulate the flow of energy and help keep the body in balance energetically by regulating that flow of energy in and out of the body. And so with that, they're essential to sort of your overall health, harmony, and happiness. And they have a very strong connection to your mental, emotional body. And your mental, emotional body can really have a strong effect, and your physical as well, but mental, emotional body can have a strong effect on the flow of energy within your chakras, for sure. Okay, yeah, Sal, is anything you want to add there?
No, you pretty much summed it up, Dave. I like the vortex, because that's how I visualize it as well, where it's could be spinning inward or outward, and depending on the needs of the body at the time. And the thing to understand is that these energies can change direction at any time depending on what's happening in your environment or within yourself, right? And so these things are not like set in stone or anything, but I'm sure over time, due to the path of least resistance, we do tend to hold certain patterns, which we then need to recognize and work on, healing and regulating and balancing in a way where it proves to be beneficial and healthy for ourselves. But yeah, no, you summed it up quite nicely there, and we'll be getting into more shortly. So let's not spend too much time on here.
Yep.
So yeah, a pathway of consciousness. So as well as each individual chakra, having its vortex and could be spinning in both directions, like Dave said, clockwise or counterclockwise. There's also so if they are like gears, one gear spins one way, it affects the one above it or the one below it accordingly. And so they're all interconnected. And if one chakra is out of balance or blocked, it's going to affect the rest of the system. And from the base chakra or first chakra all the way up to the crown chakra, you have this flow of energy that goes from more material or solid base to more ethereal or spiritual base. And what you need to understand is they're all equally important. And what's most important is that they're all healthy and they're all working together in unity and in harmony. So pathway to consciousness is because there is a direct link from our physical selves to our spiritual selves through this system. And if we can tap into each of these zones, they all have tremendous benefits. And at the same time, if we don't, they can produce challenges and blockages within our own life. And I don't know, just they'll get in the way of you with whatever you're looking to attain in your life, whether it be a great relationship, if your heart chakra is blocked, or if you are struggling with finances, it could be a root chakra issue. So again, understanding this pathway of consciousness is of extreme importance and value, and that's why Dave and I are presenting this to you today. Anything you want to add to this, Dave?
Yeah, just in terms of pathway to consciousness, I mean, we're all going through sort of a process of the evolution of our consciousness, and the chakras contain a lot of the sort of blueprint information and themes that we have to explore and challenges that we have to overcome that help guide us on our life path and just our conscious evolution, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen this evolution in several sources, saying that it goes based on age, like root, by 7 years, like root chakra from 1 to 7, and so forth, like 7 to 14 for the second chakra and so forth. Even though, we have to work on those throughout our lives, but I think that's the focal point in those years when we're looking at development. And I think to a certain degree, it does make sense, right? Because we're trying to, create safety and security when we're babies, right? And well, not us ourselves, but that's what I think is we're developing. That's us as a root, right? And we're looking to our parents to provide that, the safety and security, and the financial support, and all those things. And that's what, and our tribe, our families, our tribe, and that's what we're looking to establish. And that's, like, I think, the focal point or the main point, because it's also the survival area. So we're looking at things like, food and sustenance, things like that. So anyways, do you agree with the ages as well, Dave?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So with respect to, let me just pull this down for a sec. Yeah. So I mean, there's sort of the ideal framework where the energy sort of moves up and passes through and takes maybe about 7 years as an ideal. So by
Mhm.
the time you hit 49, the energy has sort of moved up to the crown chakra, and then at that point it starts to move back down again
Mhm.
towards the root, with sort of every 7 years as a rough estimate. However, people can be longer or shorter on each of
Mhm.
those depending on their individual circumstances. Trauma can really slow that down significantly.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so but we'll go into that a little bit more. So maybe let's pull up the next slide.
Okay. Blockages can lead to disharmony and dis-ease. Imbalances in one or more chakras can disrupt the whole being. Being aware of our imbalances and understanding how to eliminate them is a vital part of living healthy, harmonious, and joyous lives. Yeah, Dave, go ahead with this one.
Okay, yep, just going to read a few comments from Rosa here. So just based on what we were talking about before, different ages will bring different challenges as we navigate through life, and aligning ourselves with what's healthy for us at each stage. So yes, that is exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
And then she also says the imbalances will show up tangibly in our reality, depending on what is out of alignment. And that's
Yes.
absolutely true as well. So with imbalances and disease, we're talking about the overall energy and vitality of a person, and how the blockages affect the body is blockages in the chakras is that they consume energy, and they affect the flow of energy. I would say those are the two main things. So if you have emotional blockages in your chakras, they become like little black holes. They're just little voids of, little bits of void in your body that just
Mm-hmm.
suck in energy and take it away. And that's the energy that you need to use for, your body to function, for your liver and your digestion and your heartbeat and all that kind of stuff. So they take away your vital energy, and those blockages actually solidify. Like mechanically, they become more dense. And when the energy becomes more dense, it affects and blocks the flow of energy through the body. And so when energy needs to be moved to a certain area of the body, it can't get there. That part of the body then starts to run in a deficiency and a deficit over time that can lead to more emotional imbalance, more physical imbalance, and eventually disease and illness if it goes that far. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's definitely in combination with the physical and the nutrition and the movement and the mind. It's all part of a holistic approach, but it does have a direct effect on the flow of vital energy through the body.
Mm-hmm. And because it's um, taking a lot of energy from your energy stores, it's even more, becomes more of a challenge to heal from it. And that's where you really need to know where to focus your energy, I guess more accurately, which areas that you need to work on. It's very important, because you don't want to, work on an area that is already okay, right? You want to work on the area that needs the attention, right?
Yep, for
Yeah.
sure.
Awesome. Okay. So let's go to the next one.
Yep.
how to balance your chakras,
Mm-hmm.
understanding the 7 chakras. Okay, so chakra 1. So this is the root chakra, located, as you can see here, at the base of the spine, right? So your tailbone, the bottom, as well as, each one has an element. The earth represents this one because, again, it's all about grounding. It's our, tie to this physical plane, and a lot of things just focus again around survival, uh, community, and so forth. The inner state for this one is stillness, safety, security,
Yep.
and belonging. Like, having your own tribe, right? That's really important to this one. I would add, like financial stability. Nowadays, that's what you need to provide: safety, security. Again, it's sustenance. A shelter. You need money to, have a home, whether it be mortgage payments or rent or whatnot. So yeah, and the body parts: adrenals, legs, feet, bones, large intestines, teeth. And the imbalances with the root chakra are weight problems, constipation, sciatica, arthritis, and lower extremity pain. Um, yeah, so this is good, right? Because this gives you uh, an idea of, okay, I'm feeling this. Well, then okay, well, if let's say you are having trouble with your weight or constipation, or you have, uh, chronic sciatica, then to do some root chakra rebalancing, right? So that's why I really like um, these, looking at each one of these individually, right, Dave?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, root chakra. So yeah, the theme safety and security. I mean, it's pretty hard to move forward in life if you just do not feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of sort of the base of the pyramid. It's the foundation for which you kind of move up in your conscious evolution. You just have to feel safe. And as you mentioned, part of that is your tribe and having people of similar values and of like mind to be able to be comfortable to express yourself in that way. And the thing is, your tribe can change throughout your life. I mean, there's your tribe that's your family, there's your tribe that's your community, and maybe your nationality or your religion or something. But as you grow and change through life, you may find your identity changing. Like I was, and I still am, but for most of my life, I was a really big fitness guy, big into exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And, my tribe was other people of like mind that did that, for sure. But then as I started to grow and change more into the spiritual stuff and more into the meditation stuff, because I was totally lacking on all on the mental game
Mm-hmm.
completely, right? I mean, lots of anxiety, lots of depression. Even though
Mm-hmm.
I was exercising, I was still missing a part of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to really dive into that and feel comfortable doing that, I had to sort of find other people of like mind to be able to communicate and express. And that sort of energy feeds on each other and bounces back and forth, and it magnifies. So it helps sort of solidify you in the person that you are when you have a tribe around you that is of like mind and like value, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
However, there is a trap, and that is uh, your tribe doesn't always have 100% of the same values that you may have, which kind of tags off the end of this. And there's a test for the root chakra for a lot of people, especially if they're going through changes. Sometimes means you have to break away from the tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the tribe doesn't always like that. And when we look in community and society, we can see that when, especially in politics, if you have a certain tribal view, you're really not allowed to say anything else out against the tribe,
No.
or the tribe takes it very personally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be. It's easy to look at other people and as groups and categories and label them, but sometimes when you're in a group, certain group consciousness, you don't always see you see the benefits, but you don't always see the drawbacks, right?
Mhm.
And so sometimes breaking away from the tribe as a stage of evolution, uh, you have to be able to find yourself without that. And that's, I think, one of the big tests of the root chakra beyond just safety and security is who are you without your tribe? The tribe is important, but sometimes you may grow and evolve beyond that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So for me, I put the main block of the root chakra is just fear. If we just pick one emotion
Mhm.
uh, as the main source of energy that prevents the energy from moving up, is definitely fear. And I think back to the tribe, this is also where a lot of tribal trauma is stored.
Mhm.
Because your identity at this stage, a lot of from 0 to 7 years old is that becomes your programming, right? That becomes your unconscious beliefs and your unconscious values that sort of set the stage for you to grow in life. But sometimes we inherit the problems and the traumas of our parents and our ancestors, so
Mhm.
to speak, and this is where it's stored, right? Things like the Holocaust or things like slavery; those are big tribal trauma events that go beyond just the individual, and so
Mhm.
those types of traumas get stored in the root chakra and can be very big, uh, very big to block the
Mhm.
energy from moving forward for sure. Yeah. Yeah, and then control and power. People that are I always look at people who are uh, craving control and power as actually being very afraid deep within.
Mhm.
Someone who's very just assured of himself and they feel safe. Like when you feel safe, you don't have to go to control anyone or assert your power over them. So when I look at people in the world, especially politicians and certain leaders that are always going after more power, I see that as people that are actually more and more afraid, and they need to control the external world so they can feel safe. And
Mhm.
so one of the big distortions in this chakra for me is always is seeing people that have just a crave and a lust for power and control, um,
Mhm.
and
Well,
trying to control the outside world so they can feel safe. And that's all it
exactly.
is. Yeah.
Well, and the opposite of that would be stillness here, right? What it says here is stillness. I see fear as like being the opposite, right? Because it's chaotic, it's anxiousness, it's worry. Yeah, you don't feel safe and secure, and you're trying to create that what's missing, like you said, within yourself in the outside world. But uh, you know, uh, anyone who's done any inner work knows that you can't control the outside world. The only thing you can control is how you yourself respond to it, right? And
Right.
we've discussed that in some of our past talks, right?
Right.
So yeah, no, that's great. No, these are all great. Yeah, I mean, I had the same uh, I've had this in the past too, where um, I was with a tribe that, you grow up and you start going out, right? The one thing I did, for my depression to cope was party. And I had a crew that I used to party with all the time. And once I, got into the whole spiritual practice, or more the holistic health, the physical, mental, and spiritual, but especially the spiritual, and I healed my depression, I felt no need to party. And when I did try to break free from that tribe, I mean, they didn't make it easy. So yeah, you're totally right about that. It's going to take some inner strength to break free from some or certain tribes that you've outgrown, and that no longer serve you and resonate with your soul at this time, or your the evolution of your consciousness at this time. So yeah,
Right.
those are all great points, Dave. Yeah, and the
Okay.
other thing I want to mention with this too, I have a lot of people that I've helped with back pain and sciatica, or disc issues or whatever. And a lot of times when they come to me, they're like, "Yeah, my back's been great for years, and I don't know, it just came all of a sudden." And I start talking to them, and next thing you know, they're like, "Yeah, and I'm moving, or something, or I'm changing my career, or I'm making some
Yeah.
big move," and it always seems to reflect like a huge change in whatever it is that they're doing, that they were so used to uh, being in. And then it could be just whether it's conscious or subconscious fears that can leave you susceptible to irritating your back. Whereas if you didn't go through those things, your back wouldn't be so vulnerable, right? So sometimes when you're going through some big changes, you want to make sure that you don't do any heavy lifting, but that usually comes with the territory when you're moving or whatnot. But you want to be smart about it. That's another thing I always tell my clients, to be very cautious when you're going through some huge root chakra changes.
Yep, for sure.
Okay. Anything you want to add about weight problems? Maybe if there's people watching that with how this ties into weight.
Yeah, I mean, just physiologically, fear is a very resource draining emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And it causes you to use up your blood sugar really, really rapidly, and you'll just be hungry. And so you've just got this energy that's trying to be expressed through the body, but it's so incredibly draining that food can just be one of the ways your body needs to sort of grab onto to help replenish the energy, or just to use as sort of a safety coping mechanism.
Yes.
To sort of mute the expression of fear, right? Because food is pleasure as well.
Yeah.
And when you're feeling something that's really uncomfortable, food is probably one of the most common outlets that people grab to try and sort of cope or self-medicate.
100%. That's what I wanted you to touch on. Excellent. Awesome. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Chakra 2, the sacral chakra. This has a lot to do with change, the element, water, pleasure and emotion, sexuality, movement, nurturance. Now, it's located lower abdomen and genitals. Again, the element is water. Function, desire, pleasure, sexuality, procreation. The inner state, well, it's just your feelings or emotions collectively. Body, ovaries, testicles, womb, genitals, kidneys, bladder, circulatory system. And the imbalances, impotence, frigidity, uterine, bladder, or kidney trouble, stiff lower back. Go ahead, Dave. I think a lot of people really do struggle with number 1 and number 2, from my experience. But what do you say are the key elements to take away from chakra 2?
Yeah, so chakra 2, pain, pleasure, dynamic, I guess. Okay. Thanks for the comment, Rosa. I guess Rosa has to hop off for a bit.
That's
we'll
good.
see
Thanks
you later.
for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. You can see it on the replay on our YouTube channels.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you for being here. So pain, pleasure, dynamic. So it is natural to move towards pleasure and away from pain. That is sort of an evolutionary unconscious pattern that we all just have and just happens. If we really think about it, though, that is always not in our best interest, especially when it comes to things like food. Food is pleasurable, but if you keep grabbing more beyond a certain point, it actually can become very unhealthy for you, right? So all the things that we grab for pleasure in life, whether it's booze or food or drugs or sex or porn or whatever it is, a lot of that is governed by the pain-pleasure dynamic. And so if you're unconscious, you're always searching for pleasure outside of you and avoiding what is uncomfortable inside of you. And it can actually be very beneficial to a person to be able to move into uncomfortable situations, especially when it comes to feeling and processing your emotions, right? As we said before, food is such a, people can use that to medicate how they feel. Avoiding pain often means avoiding what you feel if it's not comfortable, right? So knowing when to be conscious about when it's to your benefit to move into uncomfortable situations, right? If you want to ask for a raise, but you're nervous too, right? Moving into that, facing that anxiety or that worry about the question or asking for that or stepping up for yourself can have a good payoff and a good benefit, even though it might be a nervous situation, right? So there's lots of ways you can move into uncomfortable situations that are beneficial for you. And so sort of learning to be conscious of that dynamic, and when your unconscious behavior is always pleasure seeking, and that's all you care about, because that can lead to addictions very easily. And I think that's one of the huge issues around chakra number 2 is addiction. That's where a lot of addictions are stored. I mean, it's never just one chakra, but sort of the focal point of that can be in the second chakra, and then creativity and libido. Second chakra for sure. Your creative energies are definitely there, stored in that area, and this is the energies that you use to create and put out creativity into life. So if the energies are blocked there, then maybe you have no creative inspiration whatsoever, or have a very hard time tapping into that. And then the other one is just rhythm and flow. I would say there's a general rhythm and flow to your day and to life. And I think the most common example of this would be sleep patterns. You move with life. You wake up with the sun. You go to sleep with the moon, right? And there's sort of a natural rhythm to things. And when you're out of rhythm with the flow of life, or with your daily routine, or you're just very chaotic or haphazard in your ways, I think that's an interruption in that rhythm and flow for sure. The emotion here that I have for the block primarily is guilt.
Yes.
There's a lot of guilt stored in the second chakra. Other ways of saying that are, it's always my fault, or always being too hard on myself, or self-punishing myself, or even blaming yourself for things that are even related to you.
Yes.
Taking on problems that are not your own. But guilt is the main thing that I think.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
I really agree with that, because even through my coaching, I think the greatest effect and healing that I have with people is because of my, again, you as with you as well, is the not being judgmental and allowing that safe space for them to open up emotionally and discuss these things, because who really talks about pain and pleasure? I mean, certainly my parents never did that with me, and I'm not sure too many people had any guidance when it came to uh, their sexuality, or any of these, or how to even work through emotions and not bury them, or things like that. So whenever I talk to people, one of the things I hear most often is, I never shared this with anyone. Please don't, I'm like, of course I won't. But that, and I think that's a real problem, that they can't even address it or talk about it with anyone. And even as we're talking, they share something and they go, oh, wow, I didn't even realize that. Like even they're not even conscious of it for themselves, within themselves. And then that's part of the healing with this. And I think that's why a lot of people are blocked, especially males. They don't want to share emotions, because I think it's a sign of weakness. Being vulnerable is being weak, right? We discussed this before in our other talks on anxiety, depression, and so that definitely contributes to again, the blockages. And so I think that's really important, understanding how our emotions flow up and down, and how to be aware of them and how they drive us. Emotions drive us to make decisions, right? Like you said, pain or pleasure. So if we're not comfortable, we're not feeling good about ourselves for whatever reason, instead of looking at the emotion and the thoughts and the beliefs that are driving those emotions, which could be completely false, but because we accept them unconsciously, it drives us to to addictions or whatever it is, pleasure seeking type habits or actions. And they lead to self-sabotage and destructive behaviors. And it's just kind of like this vicious cycle that it's very difficult to get out of. But to truly heal, I really do think you got to start shining the light, if you will, of awareness on it by expressing it in whatever way you can.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Yeah,
Mhm.
so that goes back to the flow and the rhythm of flow.
Mhm.
Like emotional, if the emotions do not flow,
Mhm.
then they're stuck, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, the only other thing I'll add here maybe is that when we're talking about the root chakra, that was sort of tribal trauma and group trauma. For the second chakra, it's more personal trauma, because a
Mhm.
lot of the emotions that can be stuck in there may have to do with difficult situations or events that happened in your life personally,
Mhm.
that you have to learn to transmute and overcome. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Excellent. Good way to finish that one off. And the next slide, chakra 3, solar plexus. And this is, personal power, your will, where most of our energy comes from. It's also self-esteem, and yeah, the energy to transform. And that's our fire, our passion.
Yes.
Yes, and it's our strength, right? It's what makes us all. It gives us the potential possibility when this is shining brightly to um, live without guilt, without shame, to live powerfully, and to express our souls, our authentic souls, fully, right? Like we did in our last discussion. This is where that inner power comes from, and when we do that, we are going to experience an inner state of laughter and joy, right? And if someone's trying to take that away from us, we will experience anger, right? Because
Yes,
they're
of
trying
course.
to stop that expression, or if we're trying to stop it ourselves, if we get in our own way, we may express that inner anger toward ourselves. And yeah, so and then in the body, that's expressed in the pancreas, adrenals, digestive system, and our muscles. Imbalances can be ulcers, diabetes, hypoglycemia, digestive disorders, and of course there's more. These are just a few. For each of them, it works that way.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave. You can jump in.
You go. Yeah. So I mean, everything you said there, definitely the personal power,
Hmm.
the willpower, the self-esteem, your self-worth. Like most actions, almost every action a person takes is reflective of what they believe they deserve, on a conscious or an unconscious level. And when you're accepting less than you deserve or less than you believe, like if you do not believe you are worth uh, much, then you're going to have situations around you all the time where you are not going to be treated as an equal. You may be, you know, be, be abused. You may be treated as less than. You may be accepting a job that makes you miserable, or a relationship that makes you miserable because you do not believe, on an unconscious level, that really just deep down you're worth anything more than that, or that you deserve better, right? So
Hmm.
working on building self-esteem is key, I think, to have energy moving through this chakra. And the willpower. The willpower is sort of one of the ways, not it's one of the ways that help regulate the flow of emotional energy in the body. And when you come into your personal power through your third chakra, that's really when you get a good mastery over those first two chakras and the base emotions that those provoke, right?
Hmm.
When you're in your power and you're confident about what you're feeling and you're comfortable with what you're feeling, you can feel and express those emotions without any shame, without any embarrassment. Uh, you know, it's just a part of you, and you can not only do that, but use the emotions and channel them into positive outcomes through whatever action that you want to take. So the willpower as a regulation for the flow of emotional energy is strong, but it's also will, like putting yourself out into the world
Hmm.
too, right? This is when people awaken in their third chakra, they really start to step in to more of how they are putting themselves out there, and how they are, uh, how you are just confident that you can navigate through life in a larger way than you previously had, and just
Hmm.
be totally confident that you can handle whatever comes your way, right? The self confidence.
Yes.
Um, For blocked, what blocks this mostly is shame.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main emotion. And as we talked about, self-worth and what you believe you deserve, but self-criticism and self-judgment.
Mm-hmm.
If you're watching this and you find that your mind is always self-criticizing how you look, your body, how you're always failing at situations, self-judgment about anything, that is usually third chakra, and that is usually related to self-esteem and shame as well. So also victim mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Victim mentality is a big one. There's some people that are truly victims and have had some horrible things happen to them, but there are other people that play the victim uh,
Mm-hmm.
in situations where it's not appropriate. And so if you're always claiming, it's almost like a power play. It's a distorted power play in a way, because if you play the victim, then all of a sudden everyone else has to dance on eggshells around you
Yes.
and behave in a certain way to what you want them to behave.
Yes.
So it's a victim mentality, but it's a subconscious power play in
Yeah,
a way.
it's still very much ego driven. It's like the underinflated ego, right? Instead of the
Yeah,
overinflated ego.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And then so if this one is chakra is balanced, you
Hmm.
have confidence without arrogance.
Hmm.
Because if this chakra gets too overspun, then you can develop some pretty strong ego, and the
Yeah,
arrogance, like you just said, the
it,
ego, right, gets out of control.
it's inflated. Yeah,
Yeah.
super
So you
inflated.
yeah, so you can be confident, but you can still be humble, right? And so
Yes.
when you're in that state, that is a very good state of being, to recognize that this chakra is pretty good balance for
Hmm.
sure. Yeah,
And this probably can tie into the first chakra where you said control, right? The people
yeah,
who want to control. Again, it's out of either the overinflated ego, but which is really self-esteem issues, right? Because they feel like if they don't do that, then their identity is at stake, and they feel like everything can collapse at any
yeah,
moment, right? So they need to show their dominance, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Yep. And then just caring too much about what other people think about you.
Oh.
Uh, it's very easily, other people's opinions are important, but when you hang your self-esteem on what someone else says,
Hmm.
that's a big trap to get into, where if you can't find the self-esteem and the belief and the confidence within yourself, you're going to then depend on others to supply that for you. And if they can't supply that for you, you may find yourself not a happy person, because
Yes.
all you're left with is what you think about yourself on an unconscious or conscious level, right? Which may not
Hmm.
always be the best.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and even if you think about it from a postural position, like for me, whenever I'm working with someone on the exercise side of things, it's always posture driven, making sure that the exercise with good upright posture, because that's gonna help you even with like chakra 3, or all the chakras, but especially chakra 3, like holding yourself up, because a lot of people have the rounded shoulders and the
yeah,
sunken in rib cage, which again, if you just look at that position, you're literally like crushing that area, right? Or
yeah,
suffocating that area. And again, we're not talking about being uh, super inflated, walking around with your, chest super high and arrogant, but in a way where it's just like I'm open and I'm confident in sharing myself with the world. These are, important things to, um, just keep in mind that there's a lot of things you could use, and we'll get into that to help you strengthen each and every one of these chakras, and help you balance them and help you express them.
yeah.
Anything else you want to add? What
Uh,
about the imbalances? For me, yeah, like even though the rib cage being down, cutting off the circulation, right? Like that's not going to help your digestive system. It'll get more tense in that area. If you have tension in that area with a blockage, it's going to
yeah,
stop the flow of energy. So how's your food going to pass through there if you have these blockages, right? Being energetic and actual physical, if
And
you're in
physical.
this position, right? So so think of, because the energetic tension becomes physical tension too, right? It like, remember we were talking about the pathway of consciousness. It goes from the physical to the spiritual, and the spiritual back down to the physical. So eventually it's gonna show up as a imbalance, as a digestive disorder, whether it be whatever, so many different disorders. But anyways, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's
Yeah.
all good. Yeah,
Hmm.
just that, like you said, the energetic always represents or manifests in the physical.
Hmm.
And body language, we'll maybe talk about this later when we're talking about how to balance all the chakras. But
Yes.
yeah, body language and how you carry yourself uh,
Hmm.
says a lot about what you're thinking and believing in any given moment, right?
Hmm.
Yep.
Excellent. Let's go to the next one. All right, heart chakra, chakra number 4. This is all about love, and um, so heart, love, relationships, healing, affinity, breath, unity. So like this one, obviously, interstate is compassion and love. Um, the areas of the body, again, that heart area, as well as out into the upper extremities. Imbalances could be asthma, because it's, again, the lungs, high blood pressure, the heart and lung disease. This can happen, I guess, if you've had a really bad relationship, or more than one bad relationship, and you're afraid to love, and you're guarded, and there's so many different reasons why, but usually a broken heart is the reason for blockages in the heart chakra.
Yep.
And a lack of flow. You don't feel safe to love someone, because you may experience the same pain again, and you don't want to go through that. So this is definitely a trauma driven area, I think, and one that you have to be very aware of, because this is also an important part that helps you attract the people around you. So if you are not expressive and giving a lot of love outward to the world, you're probably not going to be receiving as much love coming back at you. So it's almost like uh, like what you're looking for to heal you. Like, oh, maybe it's, you're looking for that perfect person to love you, but if you're not expressing love, then there's going to be no reciprocation there. So that's the vicious cycle, I guess, with this one.
Right.
And anyway, so yeah, what would you like to add to this one, Dave?
Um, so yeah, obviously love, compassion. I would add maybe empathy to that as well.
Yes.
Having the ability to connect with what another person is feeling at any given
Mhm.
moment is, I think, driven primarily from the heart chakra. Yeah, the equation is giving and receiving. I mean, you said
Mhm.
that, right? It's
Mhm.
giving and receiving love to self, and giving and receiving love to others. And so for this one, it helps a little bit. At least I found with myself, to you kind of have to look at what your beliefs and definitions around love are, because there's a lot of very distorted beliefs
Yeah.
around what love is, and
Yeah.
your definition of love sort of has to grow and evolve. Because when I was in my teens and early 20s, uh, if a girl paid attention to me, I automatically fell in love,
Yeah.
which at
Yeah.
the time was my belief or definition, but it was just because I was getting any attention, and I
Yes.
confused the elation of the ego or love.
Hmm.
There's romantic love, but there's also universal love and a love for all things, right? So there's different
Hmm.
definitions of love, but I think where they get distorted, uh, this really um, speaks to how you treat yourself and how you treat other people. And self love,
Hmm.
how you eat, is a direct reflection of how you love yourself. Like if you're choosing healthy foods or not, right?
Hmm.
How you move your body or not. um, and how you treat others, and the definition of love can really get distorted by fear.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a definition of love that can hyper protect. Like a parent can really, really want to protect their child, and it's natural to be that way. But then there's a point where fear takes over, and then you try and wrap that kid in a bubble,
Yeah.
right? Surround them in bubble wrap so they don't have to experience any stress or any friction. But that is actually also setting them up for a lot of problems in the long run, right? And so
Dependency over
yes,
over nurturing,
yes,
basically. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. And so that's one end of the spectrum, and then so that's the distortion in how you love others, and then the distortion how you love yourself turns into sort of a martyr syndrome, where you think you're helping, but you're really just self-punishing and causing yourself to suffer. And so there's these distortions in beliefs around love that we kind of have to look at, and that do grow and evolve. So yeah, what blocks this? You talked about this, the heart being heartbroken. So grief, a lot of grief is stored in the lungs for sure, and unexpressed grief. When relationships break, or it doesn't even have to be relationships, it can just be situations, or it can even be your own identity. As your identity changes, you have to learn to let go of that old identity and say goodbye. And with that comes a little bit of sadness too, right? So anything that's grief that needs to be expressed. When this, and the other imbalance here is just being a doormat.
Yes.
It's not mine, but I saw this on Instagram where there's a yin yang symbol, and one side it says do no harm, and the other side it says take no shit.
Yes.
Because you have to love yourself, but being kind and compassionate doesn't mean you let people walk all over you.
Yeah, right? It's extreme yin. It's too much yin energy. It's out of balance. Yeah, that's what people they see, like yin and yang is, the white being good and the black being evil, or good or bad. But no, it's definitely good and bad parts to both parts, and it's a matter of tuning into the positive aspects of yin and the positive aspects of yang, and and trying to stay away from or eliminate the other negative parts of both yin and yang. And being a doormat or someone who is just a pushover, or you're basically what it comes down to really is that you allow other people to dictate your life and how you express your soul. And that's not a good place to be, because that's going to develop a lot of inner turmoil, and and unexpressed soul is only going to lead to pain.
Absolutely. And then and so with the heart, I mean, that you just tapped on it right there, is this is one of the primary ways that a person can connect with their soul. Right? If your heart is open, and you're in that loving, compassionate state, that's how you can receive a lot of your personal guidance. There's a lot of ways to connect with your soul, but that's probably one of the most powerful ones, is just connecting with your heart, and feeling that love whenever you move into situations, and that inspires those higher states of being, like love and kindness and compassion. You know that your soul is saying, yep, that's right, do that. Just do that and be that, right?
Yes.
And
that's not easy, because I wasn't taught any of this in school growing up. Because it's just not part of what we're taught. I think in the like even the whole chakra system, it's more of a Eastern part of the world that teaches this. It's not a Western society type educational system, right? It's all comes from there. And so I think that's a normal thing that we haven't learned this, but the more I learned about it, the more I realized, wow, there's so much value in it. And yeah, I'm glad we're sharing it today.
Yep.
Would you like to move on to the next one?
Yep. Let's do
Okay,
that.
good, awesome. Oh, one more thing, the breath. I wanted to talk about. Um, when you're breathing in again, when you're talking about specific areas, we're opening up the heart, right? So that's one. I guess we're going to get into it later on with the breathing work, but
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
something because of air, I saw air as the element. You could really use that to open up your heart too, just breathing exercises, but we'll get into that soon.
Yep.
um, Chakra 5, the throat chakra. This is all about communication, really. And yeah, so the element is ether, space, sound, vibration, function, communication, like I said, and creativity. Uh, Interstate synthesis of ideas into symbols. I guess that's how we, communicate to ourselves and to others. Body, thyroid, parathyroid, neck, shoulders, arms, hands, imbalances, sore throat, stiff neck, colds, thyroid problems, and hearing problems.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I've, this one here, I mean, I see it's interesting because I remember, there was a client that I was working with, and they always had issues with their throat. Um, and one thing that I can tell is that uh, they lied often, and I know they lied because I'd have people saying like, "Oh, I saw your client at this fast food restaurant." I'm like, "Oh, interesting," because they've been telling me that they're eating really well and whatnot. And then I would see them and say, "So how's your diet?" And I wouldn't come out and say, I would just say, "Have you had any fast food lately or anything like that?" And be like, "No, no, no." And then they always were like coughing, and they always had again throat issues, right? Dry throat, always having to drink something, clear their throat. And then once we worked on that area, and they started to and it wasn't just lying to me, it was lying to and others, it was lying to themselves. So once we
Yep.
worked on being authentic and uh, communicating authentically, all this stuff cleared up, and it was amazing how this energetic dysfunction literally came out on a physical level. It was quite obvious, and it's amazing how when you do heal what's going on, and on the root and the energy side of things, how the physical body follows suit.
Yep. Yeah.
Hmm.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So for chakra number 5, so communication, we talked about speaking the truth. Definitely very, very important. I'll just tag on to that a little bit and say, as an overarching theme, it's expression of yourself.
Hmm.
And I mean, you can express yourself not only just through your voice. You
Hmm.
express yourself through your body language. You express
Yes.
yourself through the clothes you wear, through
Hmm.
how you behave. So it's the overall expression of self. And you said the key word there, which was authenticity, because what blocks this chakra, as you said, is lies, but it's suppression of the authentic self,
Hmm.
and not expressing that and letting that through. So I mean, if you have something that you love to do, and something's calling you and you're really excited, but you feel you have to dampen that somehow, for whatever reason. It could be for people around you, or just because you're afraid to be that, or whatever. How if that dampening of the authentic self and who you are, if that happens, then that's a very strong, a potent block in the chakra for sure.
Hmm.
Um, the expression of the creativity, right, the ties to the second chakra, and the creative
Hmm.
energies can often be expressed through the voice for sure.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, just, and it's not only saying the truth, but it's living your truth, right? I mean,
Yes.
people who yeah, this is living your truth and just being with that and that. So as an overall sort of theme, we look at the heart as the center chakra that connects the top three and the bottom three. This is the way I've always kind of understood it. And the bottom three are sort of more your earthly issues. And once you start to move up into chakra 5, 6, and 7, those are sort of more of the spiritual and divine issues. And the energy comes through the top and down through 7, 6, and 5 and comes to the heart. And the energy comes from the root up and where they meet in the heart. But so what that means is at chakra 5, it's the beginnings of, when this opens up, the expression of the divine self and what divinity wants to express through you, as opposed to the lower chakras, which would be what your ego wants to express through you.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And the next one, Chakra Six Third Eye chakra, and this one is, intuition, visualization, imagination. It literally, is located just above, in between your eyebrows, and we've seen that in movies before, where you have the the cyclops with the one eye, and it's right in the center of the head there. But it's your inner eye. It's what you see beyond the physical plane, like Dave alluded to. These are more spiritual chakras. So it's you think of clairvoyance. Some people have it so developed that they can see auras or colors around people's bodies, or any living thing for that matter, and which brings it to the element, which is light. And it's seeing, but seeing beyond, again, the physical. It's like when you could feel people's energy or vibe, whether they resonate with you or not, whether you feel like they are good to be around for you at this time or not, or whatever. It doesn't have to be people. It could be even events, or certain choices that you have to make. Like you could use this part to sort of guide you through life, and say, okay, well, is this resonating with my soul, or is this not? And really, that's what you use this for. To it's more of some, I guess, divine guidance or providence, as well as the one coming up. But I guess it all starts with this one as well. Well, they all do, but for this one, I think it's the intuition is where it really emanates from. Is from this area. And then the body part is the pineal. Again, the eyes, imbalances or blindness, headaches, nightmares, eye strain, and blurred vision. And so Dave, what would you like to add to this one?
So this everything there was absolutely dead on, for sure. The intuition. I also would add intellect as well. This is sort of the domain of the mind, and anything to do specifically with perception and how you perceive the world, the filter through which you perceive reality around you. And I know, when I got into doing stuff for opening my third eye, it was really cool to have some really neat experiences. But with all of that, and over time, probably the most important thing that you can develop from your third eye is discernment. It may not have to do with anything fantastic, like being able to see auras, but being able to see truth.
Yes.
And know the difference between truth and bullshit is so important in this day and age. Oh my God, there's just so much out there that's crap, that's disguised or tries to make you believe that it's the truth when it's somehow not. Is a lot of what's out there on the internet these days, and just life in general. And so being able to see the truth and use your discernment to know what, and when you're using your discernment, it's often that you're looking beyond the surface. When you see things, you don't just see surface appearances. You see a level or two down beneath that, and you can often see into the underlying motivations. of people. And because if you've done a lot of inner work and emotional work and process and transmuted a lot of that, you can often see how other people are driven by those same emotions, and they're not even aware. So it's the discernment, I think, is really key. When this is balanced, you see life very clearly and very crisp. The other things are sometimes you can get a little too into your head.
Yeah.
You can get a little spacey. You can get a little out there and into fantasy. And so what blocks this is the opposite of discernment, which is delusion.
Yes.
Or illusion, because it's not hard to look out at the world and see how people are almost living in their own bubble version of reality. And what that means is people see what they want to see, and they
Yes.
believe what they want to believe, even if it's so far off the mark. And that type of perception really, really blocks the energy from moving up to the crown. But yeah, there's a lot. And so when this gets maybe too open, you lose groundedness.
Yes.
Right? You start to float off into a lot of the times in the future, right? Your mind jumps off into future possibilities and realities, and start behaving and acting on things that may or may not ever happen. And what that means is when this is too open, it just takes you out of the present moment.
Yes.
It really does. It can take you into, and that's, I think, a risk when you get into the spiritual community, is sometimes people just get a little too far out there, and sometimes
just not grounded.
they're not grounded, but
Yeah.
the information coming through doesn't really lend to any practical application at all.
That's exactly. Yeah, their imagination is running wild.
Yeah,
They're living in, like you said, their own fantasy bubble that doesn't reflect on what's actually happening.
yeah,
And yeah, I mean and you have to be careful with that, because the thing with fantasy is you can create a realm that is, what you're creating it because you think it's better than what actually exists, and you can get lost in that. And then when you're living your real life, you think like it's not as good as my
yeah,
fantasy, right? So
yeah,
and that can start to weigh on you, because you're like, oh, I can't wait to go back to my fantasy because it's way better there. And then you sort of, stop even taking responsibility for what you're creating in this reality,
yeah,
because you're just like, well, that's okay, I can create whatever I want in my mind, in my fantasy.
yeah,
And I'll just live with that. So you can really disconnect yourself from the lower chakras. And this is all about, balancing all of them, making sure that they're all integrated and functioning well together
right.
as a team. So yeah, no, you're definitely you hit, like you said, you hit the head on the nail there, because it's a lot of people, they do become too airy or just too out there. And that's the problem, when I guess they're not guided spiritually, or I don't know what the case is, but they just sort of get lost in it too much. And they think it's better than uh, I guess reality, right? But
It is.
that form of escape is more, it's not really an escape, it's running away from your responsibility as a human being, not just a being, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I think so. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about the sixth chakra.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. Next, seventh chakra. Um, all right. So this is the crown chakra, consciousness, thought, knowing, understanding, transcendence. So the element is thought, function, understanding, psychological state is bliss, body parts are pituitary, cerebral cortex, central nervous system, imbalances, depression, alienation, confusion, boredom, apathy, inability to learn. Um, I mean, this for me, I definitely had severe depression, as we discussed in previous talks. And I just remember that when I did heal, the thing that I did experience was, and we didn't discuss Kundalini at all in this, but that's just the energy flowing from the uh, the first chakra to the seventh chakra. And sometimes this energy could come crashing through, right, Dave? I don't know if
Oh, yeah.
you've heard it the same way, but
Felt
and I
it.
think that's what happened with me, and it sort of uh, just rocked me. But it got me to a point where my consciousness just was elevated, and it helped me transcend the state the very, very low and state that I was in, where I was suffering. But I did take a number of steps in order to get there. But I just this one really does, um, I feel resonate with me, because I literally lived through this one at at an intense level, if you if you want to say that. But
Right.
yeah. So, anyways, I totally feel like once I went through this, I did have more control over my thoughts, and I had an understanding of life, a better understanding. I had attained wisdom, so it was like the energy came because it's our direct link from the consciousness, from God, if you want to call her a great spirit, or infinite intelligence, which is full of wisdom. It's like it just came crashing down through me, and I was like,
Yes.
whoa, what is happening? And it was like, okay, now I understand why I was so depressed all these years. I didn't have all of this, right? I didn't have this
Yeah.
understanding, this uh, perspective of oneness. I can go on and on and on of what I gained from it, but that's for another talk. But and the depression, really just uh, went away almost instantly, because it was like, oh, this is what I was looking for my whole life, this
Right.
connection. Once I made that connection, the energy just blasted through me and flowed through all my chakras, and it was cycling again. And I was like, oh my goodness, here I am. This is me. I finally found myself. And yeah, and it all happened because I guess this part of me finally opened up.
Yeah. It's the key words there. The connection
Hmm.
and the oneness. And
Hmm.
so with the crown chakra, um, your sort of direct connection to divinity.
Hmm.
Uh, and so when you move, we'll just take it back a little bit. When you move out of the root chakra, we talked about how your identity was tied up in the group,
Hmm.
and you slowly move beyond that to find yourself as an individual.
Yes.
And that individual identity is in the seventh chakra predominantly.
Hmm.
And the block is a very, very strong ego.
Yeah.
Because the more your person is an ego, the more they
Yeah.
see themselves as singular and separate from life.
Yes.
And when this opens up, it actually has the effect of dissolving that ego and the idea of the separate self. Because when you start to experience yourself as more than just an individual like that, it kind of destroys that illusion to a point.
Hmm.
Uh, and so, yeah, the interconnectedness of everything, and that's what you experience when this is sort of open and full in expression. But there can also be issues with that as well, and coming back down to earth a
Yeah.
little bit,
Yeah. Hmm.
for sure. Uh, because yeah, sometimes you just want to stay out there because
You're on a
when
high.
you're on a high and when you're
Yeah.
experiencing the bliss
The bliss. Hmm.
of all that is, when you come back to earth, it actually is quite painful,
Hmm.
comparatively speaking. And so you have to learn to integrate that.
Yes.
And so when I have what I have here as a balanced for the seventh chakra is the integration between your individual self and uh, your your oneness self, or your your divine self, right?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
we are divine beings for sure. we don't experience ourselves as that on a moment to moment basis. But when you're in that state of being where you're one with all that is, you actually can't function too well in this reality.
No, you can't. I couldn't function at all. Yeah, I didn't want to. I didn't want to do anything. Just didn't want to eat. I had no. Yeah, so all the lower chakra things I didn't want anything to do with it. I just was happy just being. And but I knew, I'm like, I can't be in this state forever.
Right.
Even though it did feel like I was, like I experienced what I experienced was beyond time and space. It felt like I was there for an eternity anyway. So I was like, oh, I'm ready to come back, right? Like I understand that this is just a temporary illusion, but I want to enjoy it and have fun. I mean, I must have created it for a reason. And I know where I'm going back after I die, because this is the place where I came from and the place where I shall return. But I'm going to enjoy this illusion now that I'm here, because, I've obviously came here for a reason, and I might as well make the most of it and enjoy it. So especially because now I was healed and I felt great, I wanted to experience this life with this newfound perspective, if you will, and wisdom and joy and peace and everything, all the heavenly gifts that came with it.
Yep. Yeah, sure. So integrating the individual self and the divine self. And so as we just said, it can you can have problems integrating if you don't want to come back or you want to hold on to that high. But then on the other hand, the pendulum can swing the other way, and you can actually get quite the God complex if you're not integrated properly. And we'll see this in spiritual leaders for sure, who say they speak the divine word of God, or think that they're God, or political leaders that think they have the power of God or whatever. It can really, really get distorted if a person's ego still hasn't been integrated, but they think they're God, and that's a messy situation all around, for sure. So that can polarize to either one end of the spectrum or the other, for sure. And so the two words that I have here are just trust and surrender, because when you start to actually connect and embody your divine self or your higher self, you have to let go of a lot of what the ego wants and what your individual self thinks that it wants, and you're surrendering to sort of a higher will that is yours but is also beyond yours. And so the learning of the trust and the surrender, I think, are two key things to sort of help the energy sort of stay balanced and moving in this area.
I would add repentance, like just forgiveness of self. As well. I think that helps the flow here too. That's what worked for me, was repenting for everything that I believed I did wrong, and things that I wasn't even conscious of, right, that I did wrong. And I was truly heartfelt in that repentance and in the surrendering. I think that's what I also call achieving that divine connection or conscious unity. Those are things that definitely are key, right? And you have to trust the flow, and you have to trust the divine to help you and heal you and guide you, and say, my ego is no longer serving me for the better. It's definitely causing me pain, and I need you, right? I'm nothing without you, in a sense, right? Because or I'm incomplete. I should not nothing but incomplete without you, right? And so definitely agree with that. We'll is that good? We'll move on to the next one.
Yep.
Good.
For sure.
Okay. So finally, we collective balance, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. This is very important. There's a number of things we can do to help balance the chakras and make sure that they are functioning and integrated efficiently and working to again set up a state of health and harmony for you. Meditation and breathing exercises. You can do that. One example I really like is breathing into each of the chakras. You start with the root chakra, where you try to breathe into that pelvic floor area. So you try to move the breath consciously with your mind. You need a lot of mind-body connection there, and you focus on that area. Then you move to the next area, right? More, a little bit higher, and just below the navel. And you go there, and then the next one from the navel to the solar plex area, and then you breathe into that, and you go all the way up and then all the way back down. So that's 14 breaths, right? And you could do 2 to 3 cycles, whatever you want to start with, and I think that would be a great exercise to start with. And then there's a lot of different meditations, right, Dave? There's just an infinite amount.
And then this amount, yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's where you would get someone who, like Dave or I, that, have done different ones and, know how to teach them and what to focus on. And especially for whichever section is bothering you, which sort of correlates with the next part, which is specific chakra movements or exercises. There are movements that help to stimulate the flow of energy in each chakra, right? So you can do certain exercises to help open or balance the chakras that are blocked. And then practicing mindfulness of thoughts, beliefs, mindsets, and behaviors, because that'll help you, to basically discover what is bothering you, and what is bothering you, what part is it a part of, right? Or what part is it resonating with? Like if you are having trouble with relationships, then okay, definitely I may have a heart chakra imbalance, and I need to work on that. So being mindful of your thoughts, right? Like, I don't think I deserve this person's love. If you had that thought, then you'll be like, whoa, okay, that's definitely not healthy, and I need to get to the root of that and heal that. Emotional release exercises, same thing, right? If you have some stored emotions or trauma that you haven't worked through, you can work through those with different exercises. There's also different programs like EFT, emotional freedom technique, right? And so forth. Those are just one example. Tapping. And then you have reading books on areas of imbalance to gain new insights. So just getting different perspectives, right? If you find that you're struggling with areas in one of the chakras, let's just continue with the relationship, chakra 4, then you would read books on how to heal from let's say a broken heart, and heal and then move forward, and how to find a relationship that will be a positive and enjoyable experience for you going forward. And there's because there's books on everything. That's what people don't understand, that with reading, people have written about every topic, and they've gone through what you're going through. You may think it's unique, but we've all experienced someone's out there has experienced something that you have, and they have great advice on how to deal with it and heal from it, and move forward. And then, of course, you could also work with an experienced holistic health coach and or Reiki master. Yeah, I mean, just working with someone who understands, to like, I can tell when I meet someone, it just sort of happens, and it happens with Dave too. And he said about body language, or the way they communicate, or there's just different things that are dead giveaways in terms of what needs to be worked on from even an energetic perspective. And Dave is a Reiki master, and I've even worked with Dave. He used he's helped me with certain issues in the past, and it's great, because sometimes you have blind spots, right? And you can't figure it out. You're stuck, so you need someone's help. And Dave will go to someone who he knows as well, who's a Reiki master. And then so it's a good idea, because sometimes when like I said, when you're looking at yourself, it's easy to miss certain things because we do have, blind spots at times, and we need others to go, hey, what about this? And you're like, oh, I never thought of that, right? So it's just great to have that community or support.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wouldn't be where I am now if I didn't have people to help me out along the way,
Hmm.
right? For sure.
Hmm.
As much as I was resistant to that in the beginning.
Yeah.
But eventually, when I finally came around and admitted that I needed help and
Yeah.
started asking for it, I mean, that was a great accelerator to my process, right? For sure.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so with the chakras all around, in terms of overall balancing, we'll just touch on maybe the movement a bit more.
Hmm.
A lot of the blocks in the chakras are in the spine itself. That's where a lot of the density and
Hmm.
issues are held. And a lot of the
Hmm.
times, if you're moving and you feel your spine cracking and popping, that can actually be minor emotional releases. I had a series of postures that I would put some clients through, the Eldoas.
Yes.
And one time I had this lady in a posture, and it was for T6,
Yeah.
and she was opening that up, and she didn't know. She just thought it was an exercise for posture, which it is.
Yeah.
And then in 20 seconds into the exercise, she started crying, and she didn't know why. She just started weeping, and I'm like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, I don't know why." She just started tearing, and that was
Yeah.
because the position she was in
Hmm.
was causing a bit of an energetic release. And I know for a lot of people, yoga is really it's really good for that, and
Hmm.
that's a lot of what yoga was originally developed around,
Hmm.
was helping to release energy in the system. But any kind of movement you can do for your spine, some twisted, we move in three planes of motion: forward, front to back, side to side, and then rotation.
Hmm.
So any of those movements, you can add in gentle movements for the spine. They don't have to be intense or anything like that.
No.
But flexibility, your posture is very, very important to having this movement of
Hmm.
energy flow properly through your body. And so posture is really key, and a lot of that is connected to the spine. So keeping the spine limber, uh, and also strong enough that you can hold yourself upright, is important. With the breathing, in general, the breathing mimics the flow of energy in your body. So when you breathe in, the energy goes down into your lungs. There's an energetic channel down the front of your body. I think it's called the conception vessel. And when you breathe in, the energy automatically moves down that channel. And when you breathe out, the energy automatically moves up the
Hmm.
spinal channel towards the top of the head. So another thing you can do with the breathing is breathing in and visualizing the energy going down, and breathing out and visualizing the energy going up the spine. And so when I started doing these chakra meditations, in the beginning, a lot of it was visualization for me.
Hmm.
But eventually it turned into a somatic experience. And that is what I do now. I've moved sort of past the visualizations. The visualizations helped me sort of get in touch with the sensations. But once you can actually feel the energy,
Hmm.
like you feel a tingling, like if you like, people will feel different sensations. Goosebumps is a pretty common one that
Hmm.
maybe most people will have felt. But when you feel, um, so what I would do at some point is I would just focus on a chakra. Like I just bring my attention there, and once I could finally feel the energy, you start to feel heat, or you feel cold, or you feel dense, or you feel expansion or contraction. Like there's all these different sensations that you can feel
Hmm.
within the chakra itself. Sometimes you feel a fluttering or a strobing, or for sometimes it feels like someone's like poking me with needles. So there's different energetic sensations that when the energy starts to flow more, those energetic sensations magnify.
Hmm.
And often they will accompany some emotions arising, not always, but they will.
Hmm.
So start off with visualization, I would say, but at some point, if you can use the visualization to feel energy, I think that sort of takes it to the next level. And when I was able to start feeling the energy and tapping into that, and being still enough to amplify that through my practice, that that really build things up a lot. And the more somatic it gets, like the more physical it gets,
Mm-hmm.
the more it also overrides your part of your mind that is still saying this is bullshit.
Yes.
uh,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
because again, we talked about the sixth chakra and being stuck in the imagination. So visualization is helpful for sure in the beginning, but at some
Mm-hmm.
point when you root it in your body, you want the physical sensations. Uh,
Yes.
you want the physical sensations to make sure you're not deluding yourself as to
Yes.
what's going on. It may take a while, but
Yeah.
when you build enough stillness, you can actually feel physical manifestations of what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that really cements it down as real and concrete, and starts to dispel any doubt in your mind about what's going on.
Nice. That was great.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, I mean, just health and vitality in general.
Mm-hmm.
You always got to make sure your vitality is high. When your energy flows through your body, it's your vital energy. And if you're tired, or if you're in fight or flight, if you're not sleeping, if you're not eating well, all of that stuff takes away from the energy that your body can use to move through the energy centers and help in your expansion process. So you always got to have the fundamentals of good health
Yeah.
and good vitality, and taking care
Yes.
of your body always, for sure.
Yeah. Exactly. Because they all get, the food you eat, it's basically energy gets converted into energy. And if it's, um, negative, like I say, negative food stuff, or food that actually your body has to use up more energy to break down and digest, that it actually gives you in return, then you're left depleted, and that's going to affect your, all your different energy systems, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, vitality is definitely the key focus there. Um, let's go to the next one. And these are just our final thoughts. Um, Dave, go ahead. You can go first.
Okay, so self-awareness is the key to self-mastery. And so the more I've gone through this process, the more of myself I become aware of, for sure. And there's so much more to us, especially when you start having experiences of oneness and higher states of consciousness. There is so much more to us than we can possibly know. And to tap into that and have that as a physical, visceral experience, you have to have it helps if you have relatively good levels of self-awareness, because going into that awakening with no awareness of self can be pretty traumatic in itself. But building self-awareness of your thoughts, of your feelings, of your triggers, where your blocks are, looking at the discrepancy between what you think and feel and what you do, so you can recognize, where you're blocked. Just building more and more awareness of yourself and your patterns and your behaviors, because those are all reflective of what's going on inside you at an energetic level.
Mm-hmm.
And when you change the things on a physical level, that automatically changes things, on an energetic level as well. They go hand in hand with each other. So
Mm-hmm.
just keep going within. This is an inward journey for sure, and just keep building greater levels of self-awareness. It's a process that happens over time. It's step by step. But yeah, the more of yourself you can become aware of, the more that enhances this process, and is like, it's almost like stepping on the gas pedal a little bit, so you can just go a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Not too fast, obviously, but it helps for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Yeah,
Great. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, we come up with these quotes separately, but you can tell that we're on the same wavelength when they, resonate. Mine is very similar to yours. The flow will let you know. And again, yeah, if you have that self-awareness, then, you start looking into, what's flowing in your life. If you have certain areas that, no matter what you try to do, they always seem to, uh, just crumble, right? So whether it be trying to find a good, uh, develop good relationships, or financial success, or, maybe personal power and willpower to make the right choices and create great habits and so forth and so on, then you want to start looking at what are those blockages, like Dave said, and you just continue to look at how everything in your life is flowing. And if it's not flowing, chances are there are blockages there that you need to address. And the only way that's going to happen is if you go within yourself and heal what needs to be healed and work on those things. And it's not going to happen overnight. It is a process. And as you do that, the flow will increase more and more in your favor. And that's what self-mastery is when everything's flowing and you are creating and you are living in a powerful way in which you wake up each and every day excited to tackle each and every day and be of service and share yourself with the world in a way that is with enthusiasm, with love, and with all your being, really. And that's what Dave and I wish for you and for everyone. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. And we'd like to both. Before I finish off, this is a resource if you want to read. I use some of the basically explanations of each of the chakras from this book. It's a great book if you want to read more on the chakras, but there are lots of books on the chakra system. This is only one of many. We just like to thank you for joining us. And this is recorded. So if you want to watch this again, you can do that for sure. And because you may get more from it watching it a second or third time after you've practiced this. You'll make that connection, like, I didn't realize that the first time, I missed that, but now that I've been practicing it, that makes more sense. That's happened to me. And so it'll become more relatable once you start practicing. So save this video and watch it again in the future to get even more out of it. If you want to contact Dave or I, these are the emails there. We both have our websites too. Dave, what's your website?
awakeningenergy.net, and my Instagram is @DaveHurdle.
Okay, excellent. Mine is www.v10health.com, and my Instagram is @v10health. We're here to help. If you want to reach out again, we worked with people of all levels and with various issues, and severity of issues too. Dave and I both have worked with people with critical conditions, cancer, diabetes, and so forth. So if you feel like you're finally ready for a change, or you're not sure if you're ready, but you just have some questions, feel free to ask. That's why we're here. Contact us at any time and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Dave, this has been a blast as usual. Anything else you want to say before we go?
No, I think we covered quite a bit today. There's a lot of information there, good information in there for sure. Mm-hmm. That's it. I think that's awesome. Good. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you as well for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. I'm sure it's going to benefit a lot of people who watch this video today and in the future.
Yeah, always good when we get together. There's always lots that comes out. That's awesome. So, so until the next chat.
Awesome. Take care.
See ya. Take care.
All right. Bye.